Everybody is finding a reason for their life, bringing out the gifts from deep inside. Now I've found my voice.
Ja, herzlich willkommen heute zu einem ganz besonderen Gespräch. Ich habe mich entschieden, Story und Ellika live zu interviewen, nicht per Skype. Sie sind derzeit im österreichischen Circleway Camp und ich werde dieses Interview in Englisch führen. Ich habe mir zuerst überlegt, ob das überhaupt so gut laufen wird, weil Englisch ist ja nicht meine Muttersprache und es ist nicht so fließend. Aber ich habe mich entschieden für das Mehr an Lebendigkeit und weniger an Perfektion. Ich möchte euch einfach einladen, ein Stück so hinter die Worte abzuhören und in diese Atmosphäre einzutauchen, die hier an diesem Ort und die mit Story und Ellika fühlbar ist. So a very, very warm welcome to you both. It's really a pleasure. I'm very happy that you take time for this interview. And I don't know how many people know you, but for me in the last years you really got important teachers and important friends to me. And I didn't introduce you. You are Medicine Story, Manitonquat, from the Wampanoag Nation in North America. And your heart goes with the Circleway, your heart goes with the supportive listening. And Ellika Linden, born in Sweden, for many, many years. You support Story for many, many years. You're together with him. And you are the female heart in the Circleway.
Thank you.
And for me, I had the idea, because every circle you teach us opens with the prayer. And my wish would be that for our circle now, we are three here in front of the camera. There are two people behind the camera. And there are a lot of people who is watching this interview now, that we open the circle with a prayer. And maybe at first you say a few words why you always open the circle with a prayer. What is your background about it?
Everything that I do for the past half a century is because of the teachings I received from elders of the First Nations of North America. When I had studied in university and I had studied psychology and I had studied all the different spiritual disciplines and everything else, trying to find out what's wrong with human beings, why are we still fighting each other, why is there still war and crime and drugs and violence and people hurting each other. I didn't get my final answer that satisfied me until I finally got back, as an elder of my people told me, to go further away, go north in Canada, go far west, far southwest, and meet the people who have kept the old traditions together, who know more about that, and ask them. Then, when I came to the elders in those places, they were all very happy to see me, very welcoming. Some of them said, well, we think Creator sent you here. But a lot of our young people were not listening to them, and they were eager to have their ancient knowledge, which they said was not Indian knowledge or Native American knowledge or any particular nation's knowledge. It were human being knowledge for all people. They were the original instructions. And when I heard that, and I heard about that, for the first time, everything fell into place. And I said, oh, that's the reason we get in the mess we are in now. And they told me to go wherever I was invited, not to go anywhere where I wasn't invited, not to be a missionary or anything, but to show myself up when people invited me and asked me those same questions that I should share. And I've been doing that now for more than 40 years. And about 32 years ago, I met this lady who became my other half and my other voice together. And what I forget, she's able to remember and and put in the, the female attitude and understanding.
And you forgot the prayer.
I forgot.
The prayer.
Oh, yeah, so I'm leading up to the prayer, right? So,
Is it possible just to make a prayer first?
among the instructions was for us always to begin with a thanksgiving. And so I offered that. I said, anybody putting together a circle should have something that brings everybody together. What I'm comfortable with was this Thanksgiving offering, which I've condensed from the Haudenosaunee people that I lived with for a couple of years. They could do it on for a good half hour, thanking everything, strawberries and,
So could you just give us a taste of that kind of prayer, so that the people who are watching this video now,
Well, I'm about to. We're
they
going to do my...
an idea about it, how you start with the prayer.
Yeah. So we start by holding hands. Not all people start by holding hands, but my good friend, Medicine Man, Slow Turtle, always had us hold hands, and I said, that's a good idea. Because when you hold hands, everybody, you make some kind of a circle. It may be strangely shaped, but it's a circle. And we can't ignore each other when we're holding on to each other. We can feel each other there. So then I say, look and greet each other and send thanks to each other that you came and we could be together for this time. And then we begin by greeting our mother. Mother Earth is the place we all started. She's our grounding point, where we came from. And she's been taking care of us all our lives. She's been giving us everything we need. Whatever we have is a gift from this generous mother. And her beauty also heals us. So we put our hearts together and we send our thanks to Mother Earth. Ho.
Oh.
And ho is a way to be able to say, that's what I've said now, and everybody says ho, that they heard it. So then we stretch out our consciousness to include all the other children of Mother Earth, Mother Earth's family, life family, and that's our family. And we greet the plant people, putting down roots into the earth and the oceans, and the animals that dig and crawl and swim and fly, and all the other human beings, the two-leggeds out there, and their different cultures and languages and ways. We're all one family that is diverse and interesting. We learn from each other, and they share many gifts with us. It's important that we can give our thanks to all our relatives that are supporting us in our lives. We put our hearts together and send our thanks to all our relatives all over the earth. Ho.
Oh.
Then we look away from the earth, expanding outward. We greet Grandmother Moon. She's just full last night, so beautiful, tugging at our heartstrings. Grandfather Sun sending down all our energy. And all the beings beyond in that great cosmos out there that are following their instructions, spinning around in circles, doing what The creation is intended for them, so it's all working well. The whole reality out there is functioning as it's supposed to be, and we're glad of that. We realize that that is also our family. We've been part of this journey for almost 14 billion years from the beginning of life on Earth. And we follow that journey with great interest all the time, learning all the time about our family throughout the cosmos. So we put our hearts together at this time and send our thanks out to all those distant relatives out in the great circle of the universe. Ho.
Aho.
Then when we've thought of everything that we know and try to look beyond, we realize we only know very little. The amount of things that are to be known that we don't know are so vast, we should be very humble about our ignorance. Not just claim, I know it all, but... However, there is one thing that we do know that's important to us, and that's that we're here. We're together right this moment. We're alive. We're listening to each other, sharing with each other. That's really important. In fact, it's a miracle that we should be alive at all, and being alive, that we should be able to know that we're alive and share that life with each other and help to make life better everywhere and make our few years of this life that we're given, few precious years, as good as we possibly can make them together. And we don't know who's really responsible, or I don't know. Other people give names to it, of course. People use words like God, or Allah, or Great Spirit. And for me, those are just words people have made up to point at something they don't know. They tell stories about it, but every culture's got totally different stories. Who's going to say which story is right? Maybe they're all right, maybe they're all wrong, I don't know. The thing is, to me, it's all a mystery beyond what we do know. And that's sacred. Mystery is the most of our experience here, is mystery. And that's, I think, where we need to direct our thanks. Put our hearts together one more time and send our thanks for this life to the great mystery. Hope. Okay. Yeah, that kind of puts us all together because we're all in the same boat. We're all alive here at this time, and we have things that we can do together. And that's wonderful, exciting.
Maybe the people don't know that you have already the age of 87.
Yep.
So you really have a lot of experience in your life.
Yeah, it's hard for me to realize I've been in 10 decades now. I was born in the 20s, and I've lived through the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, woolly wutzes and the teens. Wow. Look, this is my 80th year I'm embarking on right now. My 88th year I'm embarking on now.
So what did you find out about what it needs that people really could be themselves?
Could be themselves. Well,
what does it need that they really get in contact with themselves?
Of course, among my people, we have some kinds of meditations and ceremonies for that, especially medicine people can lead, that I've led, where we go out alone in nature and sit there and say, okay, here I am, who am I? What am I doing here? How do I relate to all these things around me? What's my life for? What is it about? What should I be doing? All those kinds of things. Later on, a lot later on, 36 years ago, I ran into another discipline, another teaching that had been around since 1951 and was pretty well developed in creating a community around the world. And it was known as reevaluation counseling. And it made a big impact on me. I got into it, became a teacher of it, began to work with the counseling system, which they call co-counseling, brought my kids up in it, had a whole community devoted to it, and it was very good because my understanding of what's gone wrong, and I'll talk about the reasons of that tonight when I tell the story of the world, but there's an old story in which we were all living in circles, and that's what made us human. While we tried to help each other, support each other, take care of our children, take care of our elders, and take care of everybody, we became human. And that is still in us. We inherited that in our evolution, in our DNA. We all want to be helpful and to be together. We want to be connected. But that got split up sometime before the invention of writing, so we don't know exactly how it happened. I made a lot of guesses I'll tell about tonight, but everything changed, and I think it changed because the population exploded in certain areas where civilization began, and those areas where the problems began. They began because they didn't have the circle anymore. They didn't have the understanding of why the circle was so important. And it became, suddenly, everybody became separate, alone, no circle. What do I do to survive? When we had the circle was going to take care of you from the moment of birth until you passed away. It's always going to be there, and you take care of the circle. That wasn't happening anymore. So what was holding us together, this glue of love and compassion and helpfulness and so forth, wasn't functioning. And what took over was fear. How am I going to survive for myself? And in that instance, the survivors were the ones who were most physically powerful. They were men, all, and they took over, became the warlords of their gangs and so forth, which developed into civilization and became kings and emperors and pharaohs and eventually presidents and premiers and chief executive officers, the people that still own the earth and use their power because they own the earth to direct everything in the culture, direct all the institutions, which are all pyramids from the top down, a boss at the top and his cabinet, his cronies together there, and then the police and the armies that hold it all together and control it with threat of imprisonment or worse. And underneath there, the classes of people that are managed to do okay, and the bulk of people at the bottom who are living in poverty and not okay. And that system is what's still there, and in some ways it's worse than ever. The gap between the very rich and the poor is bigger than ever. And so my understanding of what was wrong is that we still, all of us, have a good functioning intelligence, creativity. We have our love and compassion. We have our sense of fun and play. We know how to really live. But we're struggling because we're not together. We're not building a more beautiful society than we have. At this point, I want to introduce my friend Charles Eisenstein, because he wrote a book called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And everybody knows that this world we have is not human, it's not good for us, and we can imagine a better one, but we're stuck because we're not together working on that. I love this book because he's so eloquent and thinks so well and writes it all out better than I can. So I keep promoting that everywhere. If you want to know, you can get into that. I'm sure it's in German too. But my job is to connect people.
And how do you do it? Because some people maybe don't know what is a circle way.
Yeah.
And I took this stick in the meantime when you talk. What is it all about this?
Well, this just happens to focus the listening. What it's about is listening to each other. The initial way to connect, the thing, Charles talks about the old story. Well, it's not the old story, but it's the older story. We all grew up in. It's the story of separation. Nobody's listening to you. Nobody's listening to any individual except the one that's got the money and can buy the time and buy the newsprint and so forth and so on.
But what can you tell us, or maybe also you, Ellika, what changes in ourselves when somebody's listening to us?
Well, you have a chance to be yourself. Because the way of listening that we're teaching, I call supportive listening. I mean, everybody's listening a little bit, sort of. It's from reevaluation counseling that I learned the value of really paying attention to each other and take turns. So that in a period of time, half the time, I listen to you. It's not my time, it's your time. And you have a chance to go inside your mind and inside your heart and express everything that's there, express and be yourself completely, find yourself completely in there with a supportive listener who wants you to do that and wants to know who you are and keeps encouraging you to be the most of who you are.
So this one means that we give each other that space so that we can expand
Yes.
to be ourselves.
Yes. The other thing I learned from reevaluation counseling, and this supportive listening is the direct copy of co-counseling. It's exactly the same. No sense in reinventing the wheel. They did it good, and I learned how to do it and teach it. But I don't want to use their word because that's for their community. The reevaluation counseling community uses co-counseling. I don't want to invade that. So I said, well, we're going to use the same thing, but we'll call it something different. And supportive listening gives a clear indication of what it's about. It's listening, but in a supportive way. So you're not pushing your own stuff. You're not analyzing what's being said or giving advice or being critical or judgmental or anything like that. You just listen and support the person and the real person that's inside. The other thing that I learned from reevaluation counseling is that we are not always ourselves. There are times when we say and do things that later we say, my God, why did I say that? Well, they have traced that down, as most of psychology has, to early experiences when we're still small children and very vulnerable. We know we can't survive without the adult world, and when they start to fail us, when the adult world doesn't listen to us, doesn't pay attention to us, doesn't respect us, ignores us, or even abuses us, that's terribly hurtful. And it goes deep inside. And all the things that we carry that are not us, that we say, why did I do that? That's because of things that were done to us. So I keep assuring everybody, as reevaluation counseling does, that who we really are not these patterns we carry and these distresses we carry inside us. Who we really are is what we were born. And you can really see that clearly when you look at a little baby. Brand new little baby. You can't look at a little baby and say, oh, I don't know about this baby, I don't think it's very good. And that's kind of a bad baby, you know. You look at it and you say, wow, how perfect, how wonderful. Oh, and you just, you know, all your heart goes out to the little baby because of how perfect and wonderful it is. And that's all of us. That's who we still are. Only all this other stuff keeps getting in the way. So supportive listening is a way of reaching out to those things that hurt us, understanding them, expressing them, getting supported in saying, that's not me. I'm not going to carry that with me the rest of my life. I am this wonderful little child, and that's who I'm going to stay to be. Keep making commitments to be who we are and let go of the ways that we were hurt. It helps us in understanding other people we're listening to, because when they start saying things that are hurtful or separative and all like that, we know it's not them. We know it's the way they were hurt. And we want to help them with that.
Ellika, what is your experience of the supportive listening? What is your experience during all these years where you have been on the side of story? What did you experience in the circle way?
I just thought about the circles we have in prisons in USA. That was my first experience, no, my second experience of a circle, how we can listen to each other and pay respect to each other and not argue and not interrupt. And when the men got the talking stick and could talk from their heart and got the time, and people were listening to them, something very, very deep happened. And they became, tough men standing up in the circle and crying in front of other prisoners. You can't think of it because it's very dangerous to do that. And
Protect the microphones.
Yeah, you just touched the microphone.
Oh, I'm not.
Because you can't show your soft feelings or your hurt feelings in a prison, or men can't do it very often either. In the society, to be weak is dangerous, and it's so fantastic when you see those men waking up. Because when one starts to have courage, to be courageous enough to share on that level, it opens up the rest of the group.
It's an invitation.
Yeah, it's an invitation to be who you find yourself and find your voice in front of all these people. And a bondage was happening between them that is very, very deep, and still, that was 31 years ago, and they are still friends, many of them. Yeah. So that was the experience of the circle, and then supportive listening belongs to the circle. It's an extra plus in the circle, and it allows even going deeper. And when you only have one listener or two listeners, you have more time to go deeper, and the trust can be stronger when you don't have a big group.
I read today in the social media, it was very interesting about the TED talk from, I think he called Johann Hari. he talked about addiction and connection.
Mhm.
And he said the opposite of addiction is connection. And it remembers me on your work.
Mhm.
He says when you cannot relate to each other, then it's very easy to dive into addiction.
Yeah.
And they really make a big research on that topic, how we can change addiction, and it only goes with connection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I thought it
Yeah,
was very
totally right.
beautiful also to
Yeah.
that now in the research they also find that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought it's interesting that I read it in the morning when I come to you,
Mhm.
and you
Well-
make such a simple work. Yeah,
Mhm.
circle way is in somehow very simple in somehow,
Mm.
but
Basic,
it goes
yeah.
basic. It
Yeah.
goes in such a deep. It heals in
Yeah.
such a deep way.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good things going on in the world right now. A lot of people who realize that the old story of separation is not working, and we can't change it until we connect, till we give a new story of reunion and reconnection and start really listening to each other. So that's what's happening on many levels in different places, and people are starting to live together in communities, eco villages, taking care of the earth there, and doing permaculture and all those things. It's all part of the same movement. And I like to network with all those people and let them know that we're here. Our particular part of it, I think that I'd like to see more emphasized is this part about our goodness, our natural goodness, and what gets in the way of that because of early hurts, and how we can find ourselves through supportive listening and support the real soul of who we are.
So maybe people who are watching our talk, they say, I don't know who I am. I lost myself. I do not even have a sense of that I could be a gift in the world. I don't know why I'm here.
Mhm.
So which kind of advice you can give to somebody who is in that kind of mood? Which kind of advice you can give? How somebody can start when you're at that point?
Start however you can from wherever you are. Start by reading Charles Eisenstein or all the 12 books that I have out there. Look for any place where people are getting together, even if it, like support groups, alcoholic support groups, drug support, all these different kinds of groups that come together. I recommend that parents get together, for instance, because they're an oppressed group that gets no help. They need to learn to help each other and ask for help from the rest of the world, because they do the most valuable work on the planet and they're not recognized or helped for that. So that's a large part of my last book, called The Joy of Caring for Children in the Circle Way.
But if there is a person who doesn't know what to do, perhaps she or he has a friend that she or he can share time with, and that when you listen and don't say anything, and you let the other person find out what's in their thoughts and hearts. You can do that without studying it. But then it's good that you can learn many more things about it. But just that, to give everybody time to talk and not judge and accuse or say bad things about anybody in the circle or in the conversation, but really talk from your heart how you feel about things without blaming anybody, because that makes it insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you share on that level, it's good to also say that we don't talk with anybody about what have happened between you, that you don't talk about what the other person said. that it's
It's confidential.
confidential.
So that you even feel
So
more
you can
safe.
start anywhere. You can start to have a circle where you listen to each other.
Yeah. And we use this particular tool, a stick. My people use a stick usually, but it could be anything. It could be a mole, it could be a rattle, a feather, or anything you want to pass around, somebody's glasses, whatever. If that is, the person who holds it is the one who is being listened to. And everybody else is in a position of supportive listening. Just listening non-judgmentally and helping him get all those things out. I carved this one with a heart on top to remind everybody who holds it to come from your heart. Not from your critical brain, but from the deep intuition, the deep longings of your heart, all the places, that's where your real power moves you. And I have it growing out of the earth, as we all do, riding in the back of a turtle, because that's the old legend of my people, that the earth rides on the back of a great spiritual turtle, symbol of life.
What is the difference? You know, so maybe people cannot imagine what is the difference if we talk like this or if we talk with the stick. What is the difference? How the energy changes when you're talking with a stick?
Well, if we were using this right now and you were holding the stick, then you wouldn't be asking questions. You'd be asking questions of your heart. You'd be asking questions of yourself. You'd be going into yourself to find yourself. Asking yourself questions about, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose in life? What's my goal? Once you've got satisfactory answers for those, then you lead a much more confident, simple, and direct life as I do, whereas I know my position in life is to connect people. And wherever I go, that's my job. So it's simple, straightforward. I'm to get people together to listen to each other, and to listen to each other in a supportive way.
I can even feel it when I hold that stick, you know. It goes through many circles.
Yep.
It is really like, and I have my experience already with the circle way. It is really like, it's easier to get connected with myself, what I feel by now. It's easier because I feel safe that I got all the attention of you. So this is the lack, we all have a lack of that kind of attention. Yeah, we always have to fight for it, that somebody hears us. So it is like giving space, and it makes more relaxed in the body. It is like I can be relaxed because I got now the space of both of you, that I can talk what is coming out of my heart by now.
Yeah. And it helps that you know that all the people listening to you have made an agreement to listen to you in a supportive way. They're not being critical, they're not going in your mind, oh, I don't believe that. They're not trying to give you advice or put their own feelings out there. They're just listening to you to figure out how they can support you.
And this is what I felt now, when I just hold the stick. Yeah. That you support me to find my words by now.
One of the things that Charles points out is that we're in an interim space between the old world, the old story, as he calls it, and the new story. The old story of separation, we're used to that. And we sometimes function still that way with us. But we don't like it. We want to get connected. We want to be supportive. So we keep reaching out to do that. But every now and then, because we've been educated and raised and it's all part of us, it grabs a hold of us and we start to criticize each other start to set up this separation boundary or whatever. And the only answer to that, as he says, I agree, is to be aware. To be aware at that moment, oops, now I'm talking out of a separate space. I'm putting everybody out there instead of bringing them in here with me, where I am you, and then we can really work on stuff together. And just being aware of that, well, it does the job, because now I don't, I still think critically very often. And I know after I'm doing it, I say, uh-oh, that's the old story. I'm separating out, I'm putting these people in a box over there. No. But I haven't expressed it. I don't express it because I'm aware of that, and I say, I don't want to do that, okay. And so just not expressing it will keep it from running out all over our community, of our society, and we keep banging each other.
You would like to say something?
Yeah, when you listen to somebody in the circle or in a listening session, you don't need to agree, because that person has his or her story and wants to tell and see the world in his or her way, and so it's not an argument coming on, and that's very important, that we argue so much. I have to win the argument. We discuss and argue instead of listening. What do you really want to say? What is behind what you want to say? Who are you? Who are you telling me all that? And I'm interested. I want to know you.
And we just had a camp recently, which was well organized. People have been doing it for years. They know all this, and it was harmonious, and we were so good right up to the last minute. And somebody started to tell a story, and something in the way the story was being told re-stimulated somebody's hurts. And they objected and interrupted, which is part of our agreement. Don't interrupt, wait until later to talk about things. But they interrupted to stop the whole thing. People who were listening saying, let him tell the story, and others were saying, no, it's not good. And, before our very eyes, everybody who was so harmonious and listening to each other was like this, breaks your heart. But we're all in that. It makes me realize we just have to be conscious, keep reminding each other. I'm asking all the teachers now to agree that these are the principles. We want to support each other, not criticize each other, not badmouth at all, not put us away, but to connect and support each other. And if that's our goal, the times when we blow it and make a mistake and throw everybody into chaos and conflict, okay, it happens. We forgive, and we say, oops, I made a mistake. No big deal. We're all going to make mistakes, and we support each other. Go back to supporting each other.
Yes. Yeah. And I think for me, it was also important to experience your circle. When it was for me important to have that experience, to feel how it is to be supported in the listening. Yeah? When you once make that kind of experience, then you have it in your blood, I would say, like this. Then you have it in your heart. It's like when you're living in the dark and you see first time the light, then you will always remember the light. Yeah. And for me, your kind of work, what I know since about 5-6 years, it is like showing such a light. Hey, there is a way for us in all that chaos what we have on the earth. There is a way how we can go on when we open spaces for each other. And this feels so expanding.
The other part of the circle way that we haven't mentioned here is the separation that we all feel from nature.
Yeah.
From the other creatures, from the earth, and our natural self. We all love the beautiful earth, and we keep building things up on top of it and polluting it and doing, and it hurts us. We have at home a nature school which we've been trying to help the little children reconnect. It's wonderful to watch the little kids come in, get off the bus and get in there and run out in nature with us and just experience the animals and everything there. They're so excited because they don't get that. They're sitting in front of TV sets and handies and so forth, so they're not experiencing that deep connection that we all feel to nature. So that's very much a part of the Circle Way, to reconnect us there too. And I've also been promoting the ideas of Edward O. Wilson, a great biologist, in this new book this year called Half Earth, in which he's proposing that we're destroying the biosphere where all life exists. Little by little, human beings are doing that. And down the road, that's going to be very hurtful to all life, including us. Maybe destroy it completely. A lot of people think that. But he has a very hopeful proposition, this half Earth, and that is to save half the Earth and save half the oceans to be natural wilderness, untouched by human messing around and polluting and building and stuff like that. Just like we would go into a national park or a national forest or something that's preserved that way. To preserve half the earth and half the ocean, then all the beings that live in that half will return to the slow evolution that's been going on for almost 4 billion years on this planet, that we're now interrupting with all our technology and everything else.
What does it, how we are going to change when we are in a natural surrounding? How does the nature support us?
Well, we know how nature supports us, but we're not paying attention to it a lot. We need to teach that a lot in schools. That starts happening in schools now. And we need to get out in it ourselves and bring our families out in it and just see all the life around us and how we're connected to it, the way you do in a vision quiz, for instance, with our people. The more we do that, the more it will heal us, you know. Being in that natural love that we do have for nature and the earth and all its beauty heals us, reminds us, gets us back to ourselves again. It's part of our nature to want to live.
So we are part of the nature.
Exactly,
We are
exactly.
part of the nature.
Yeah.
So, when we look at our journey now in the last 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
what you would like to say to our audience about how they could be themselves, about how they can feel that they're really a gift to the earth?
Mm-hmm. I would suggest that people pay more attention to what's good and less attention to what's not good. The negative has so much more power that it tends to dominate our consciousness, tends to make us do stuff out of obsessions and things. And once we realize that, I've been doing a lot of research about positive psychology, which is following the same kind of path unknown to me for some time, but they've done a lot of research, and they say that in every relationship we have, if we can remember to choose to put our attention on the positive things in a ratio of 5 to 1, that is 5 positive things to 1 negative, then we might get a better balance. But any less than that is probably unbalanced, and our relationships are going to be suffering. So I'm putting out to everybody 5 to 1. If I say anything critical to my wife, she says, "Okay, you owe me 5."
It seems that it works pretty well between you, this 5 to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you like to say at the end of our journey together, at the end of our circle together?
Your gift can be anything, but it's very important to find it. I once was in a bus in Stockholm, and the bus, everybody was like this. And then he started to say, aren't we living in a beautiful city? Look out the window, there is the water. His gift was that, to lift people up. You could be a bus driver, you could be somebody serving in a restaurant, you could be anywhere in your life where you feel that you have a gift to make people happier.
Yeah.
It's so important to find a way for you to not to judge yourself and put yourself down and put other people down, because when you feel smaller and lesser, you're taking energy from life. When you say, "Oh, I made a mistake, I forgive myself, I'll do better next time," you know, or be a little nicer to yourself. Don't judge yourself so much, because then you stop judging others too. Because when we judge ourselves, we judge others. So, and then perhaps when you meet your friends and when you wake up and are like, you can think to yourself, what's good about being alive right now? What's too new and good? We do that sometimes when we get a little bit more worried, you know. Because the good things are there all the time, but we don't give them attention. We give attention to the bad things. So energy flows where attention goes, like the Hawaiians say. If I give all my attention to the destruction and to my bad feelings, they grow. And if I give a little bit to the positive feelings, to the smile you gave me this morning, or I heard a bird, or whatever, there's always something that you can be grateful for. And that can fill you up more. Yeah. I try to do it. It's not easy sometimes, but and to appreciate each other. We do that every day. We say something, "Oh, you did that so good," and you know.
Yeah, we were doing that
things.
long before we heard about 5 to 1. When
Yeah.
we said, "Oh yeah, that's good. We know. We do that."
If you want your relationship with anybody to be better, appreciate that person. And don't only blame, but see also the good things. Because if you have a relationship and you start to only say the bad things, "Why didn't you do that?" You know, it goes down the drain. When you say a little thank you, remember that you live, perhaps, or you are friends with this person, and you forget to say the good things. You take them for granted.
Yeah.
This afternoon or this morning, we had one part of the early part of the circle when we brought everybody in there, and everybody gave appreciations to people for having done different things, for having organized this, for having kept the place together, for giving the food, and all the different stuff that people are doing all around. Everybody got appreciated. It was a lovely day, my favorite time, because I realized when I say something nice about you, I feel better, because I know it's a good thing that I should be doing. Probably wasn't thinking about doing it. I'm glad I finally did it. And it's good for you. You're glad that you hear it. You're glad I noticed the good things you're doing and so forth. And it's good for everybody who's listening, because they all feel up, oh, it's good they did that. So with one thank you, we've raised everybody up. And that's how I like us all to be looking at our relationships with each other.
Thank you very much, Birgit.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for all your work. You're traveling around Europe every year and you bring your message. This is your mission.
Yep.
And you light up so many people.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
We're still
Wonderful.
trucking. Expect us next year. Look out.
Thank you for this talk. Thank you for that support.
And look for us on the internet at circleway.org for more information. And
This one we will write it down.
Okay.
Everybody can
Circleway.org.
find it.
Okay.
Thank
And they
you
can
very
connect
much.
with us through that.
And thank
Also in
you.
the back. Thank you.
And thank you guys.
Now that I found my voice, I know that there's no choice. It simply wants to share with you.